compared to Rachel, it was as if she was hated, but she certainly wasn't hated. So maybe that's the Lubavitcher Rebbe's saying, okay, you call them hated, but really, I mean, Hashem loves them so much, but so if you start comparing, you say he hates.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's any good.
I like it.
Okay.
Vayar Hashem ki snu alea snua. Yaakov doesn't hate her. Yaakov's hated.
He would have to divorce her. Right?
Beautiful.
It's asur to hate her.
Beautiful. Hello, Esav Yaakov no Hashem. Esav and Yaakov are brothers. The letters Aleph Het, says Rabbi Hirsch, represent something bringing together, like Ehad means like to unite, like Icha, like when something is ripped. Le'achot in Hebrew, with an Aleph. Le'achot is to stitch together. Ba'achu. He writes in his commentary on the book of Bereshit. The meadow where all of the grass is growing together. Batir'ena ba'ahu. Ba'ahu. Aleph had vav. Maybe that's achaz is a whole long list. That's the way he learned. Rabbi Hirsch's teachings are that even though most grammarians claim that there are 3-letter roots in Hebrew, he has a whole teaching. Most of his that there are 2 root letters. It's a big chidush, and he won't say achaz. Aleph chet zayin means to take something like this is over here, and now I'm grabbing onto it, so we're becoming connected. He has a whole series of teachings.
I have to mention that Ashkacha Pratis again. This always happens. So I brought out this book from your bookshelf, put it on this. It always happens.
You put it out.
It's not the first time that I brought out a book from somewhere in your bookshelf of all the books. I put it out, and then you start talking about it.
It's a wonderful book. It's a wonderful book. No, this is really a wonderful book.
It's amazing.
It's a wonderful book. I mean, our dear children gave it to us. I mean, and this is really beautiful. It's the roots in Hebrew roots based on Rabbi Hirsch's teaching. I didn't even know it was on the table. Right? I really did not. Yeah.
Don't need to know it. It just keeps happening.
That's what I spoke about. Achad, Icha, Achaz. It's all here. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. All right. Pasuk Gimel is a little more difficult. Ve'et Esav saneti. Esav saneti. I hate Esav. Now you could say, I hate the actions of Esav. Maybe is there a difference between hating Esav and hating what Esav represents? What? I can't hear you. Esav saneti.
Or maybe the lashon of
sounds like a very strong emotional word, right? I hate you. Hello, misanecha Hashem esna uvitkomecha et kotat.
Asnat.
Anybody want to help me with the words Esav saneti? I hate Esav.
Maybe the word saneti.
I mean, let's say you would be Esav and you'd hear that God hates you. So maybe you give up, right? I mean, unless you say it could be changed. But it sounds so terrible, right? Imagine a parent telling a child, I hate you. Now, I'm doing it with more emotion. You could say that. I hate you. But I mean, I once took a class in speech in Brooklyn College, undergraduate, and for 45 minutes, 45 minutes. This is what I do. You want to know what I do in my life? 45 minutes of my life I spent in a class with 10 other people saying the words, "Oh, Henry." That's what we did for 45 minutes straight. And we were supposed to express every form of emotion with those 2 words over it. You're like, oh, Henry, like 45 minutes, and each of us had to go through it. And the point was that the voice, we could. What do you do to a child? I've met people whose lives were damaged completely.
Yeah.
Because their mother told them they hate her, their father told them they hate her. And if I was a parent, and I was looking for justification from the Bible, I would say, look, God says I hate Esau. So I hate it. And don't we have all kinds of teachings about Yaakov making mistakes, about favoring children? Do we have those teachings? Lo'olam ha'yishaneh adam b'no bein habanim. And the Talmud teaches, I believe it's in Masechet Shabbat, the Gemara teaches about the fact that because Yaakov showed preferential treatment to Yosef, Am Yisrael, was suffering for who knows how long in Egypt. Well, it sounds like, Esav Saneti, so, how about Yaakov? Please teach us.
Are the tenses of
Baruch
Ohav?
atah Adonai Eloheinu melech Shakol niyeh b'dorach.
Amen. Are the words Ohav and Saneti in the same tense?
Well, it's a vav hamahapechet. It's a vav hahipuch. It's true. It's expressed differently, but the beginning. Vo'ohav means and I loved Jacob. That's what it means. Vo'ohav, right? That's translated. And Esav Saneti means I hated Esav. Now you could say you want to say there's a difference. The Ibn Ezra says something like this in the book of Breshit, that sometimes when it uses a regular verb instead of a vav hamapechet, it means I already have hated. I already hated. So you think that part of the answer maybe is it does not say
The hate is in the
vo
hatred is in the past.
esna et Esav, right? Right, is what he's saying. So what's the difference between the two?
The hatred is temporary. It's in the past.
Oh, that's what it means. But then you have to do the first words of the pasuk bet. You want to say that also?
It also sounds like it's in the past. I love.
Ahavti etchem amar Hashem. It's the same word, right? I mean, right or wrong?
Is
ahavti etchem.
I don't know that. What's the
Ahavti. I don't know what. Ahavti etchem. Shalom aleichem. Ahavti etchem amar Hashem. I want to pass the same. Whatever you say about Saneti, you have to say about Ahavti, no? Don't be polite. That doesn't help me.
correct? Yes, but Va'ohav could be.
No, but let's.
I understand.
Compare Ahavti etchem to V'etesav Saneti. They're both Ahavti and Saneti. Anybody say insights a Saneti? How do you?
But that's not in the context of Yaakov and Esav. Ohavti is going in
Jewish
Israel.
people.
When we talk about Yaakov and Esav, it could be that.
That Ohavet Yaakov is more permanent. Is that true? I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know that to be the case. I told you the Ibn Ezra says in Breshit, he says that when it uses a verb without a vav, it sometimes means and I already have. Not he doesn't say it about temporary. You could say that. You have any proofs of that this means? In other words, it's only in the past. Is that what you're saying? Only in the past.
I hate it.
I hated.
I express the
and
emotion.
Ohav is not I loved. Okay, but since the vav, okay, I like your teacher. Very, very fine person. I love you. I like your teacher. So the teaching will be like this. If I could just, what's the philosophy? What's the philosophy of vav hamapechet? Now we're going to learn the philosophy of dikduk. So the vav, it has two names. It's called either the vav ha'ipuch or the vav hamapechet. So maybe the teaching is, according to Rav Yoni, this is the teaching, that when it uses a vav hamapechet, it means there's something past about it, but there's something future about it as well. Right? Look at the word v'ohav. Ohav means I will love, right? Ohav et Yaakov, I will love Yaakov. V'ohav means, and I love Yaakov. It's a very important teaching. I like it very much. I mean, it's you've heard this, or you just made it up now? Made it up now. Why don't you come every Tuesday night?
I'm here every Tuesday night.
No, you don't talk. We don't hear you. It doesn't help you.
I have nothing to say.
Yeah, it's okay. Very nice. So what's Vav HaMa'apechet? I once taught a dikduk in Torah Avodah. and it was a great experience for me because first of all, I had tried to study in that yeshiva, so it's very exciting to go back to a place that you studied in and try to teach. And walk into like all the rooms that you were never allowed to walk into, like the teacher's room, the Rebbe's room. And secondly, so I walked in the first day and I was supposed to teach Dikduk, Hebrew grammar. So I took it upon myself like a major challenge, a year. And then I'm going to try to teach it in a way. So I tried to show all the halachic ramifications of Dikduk, because these were serious Torah students, So somebody put out a sefer from Mosad Rav Kook. It's called Hadikduk Ki Yisod B'Halacha. So that spoke of it. Dikduk Ki Yisod B'Halacha means that so many hundreds and hundreds of drashot are based on Dikduk. So one of the things I said then about Vav HaMapechet was that the Torah. What was Vav HaMapechet? What Vav HaMapechet? Vayidaber. Vayidaber means that, and then he spoke. So say diber. What do you mean Vayidaber? I spoke. He will speak. Or when you use past tense, when you use v'chizakti et leiv paro. Chizakti means I hardened. V'chizakti means no.
And I will harden.
I will harden. So say v'chazek with v'chizakti. Like you follow the question? I wish I had a board. I can write on the wall, but I'm not. Should I write on the wall? I can write.
What happened to you?
Henny drew this picture. This is Henny's picture. So what do you need? What do you need past to be present? What do you need past to be future and future to be past? So I said that's a biblical concept of God, like God's name. We don't pronounce it. It means something along the lines of was, is, will be, future, past. So maybe all of Torah is somehow that which was, will be, Mashahaya, Hushiyeh, Mashanasa, Hushiyeh. Says Kohelet, that which was, will be. How do you express that idea? So every page, every time you read a word that's was, is, will be, talk straight, was or will be. Vayomer, Yomar means future, Vayomer means past. So maybe that's what I said in Torah. But like what you're saying, that Ohavet Yaakov implies something that there will be a future to it. Whereas I like it. I like it very much. I really do. And Esav Saneti is only something, there's no future in that. Saneti, past tense. Bezrat Hashem, that maybe that can be changing today.
Amen.
The problem with that is I would love Pasuk Bet to have started with the words, Vo'ohav etchem, Amar Hashem. If your teaching is correct, then we have to make sense at the beginning of Pasuk Bet also. Okay, V'eteisav saneti. You have to work on Pasuk Bet, right? V'eteisav, you have something to say? Yes, please. Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem. Yeah, I'm listening.
Lost it, sorry. This is something to do with Yosef also.
I hate Esav. Are you familiar with the teaching of one of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's? I wish I could love the tzaddik sheb tzaddikim the way God loves the Rosh Hashanah Rishayim. No, so it's not Lubavitcher. I think it's Lubavitcher. But Esav Saneti. I'm sorry to ask you a question so quickly after you came in. There's a teaching that when a rabbi walks in, he's supposed to give them time to calm down and relax and drink something. I apologize. Can we give something to drink? No drinks? No drink? No drink? I hate Esav. Va'asim et harav shmama, and therefore I've turned his mountains into areas of desolation. I think harav maybe is not just literally harav. A har implies some form of arrogance, some form of elevation. So it could be that one of the things that Esav is accused of in many places in Tanakh, we learned together Baruch Hashem the book of Ovadiyah, which is dedicated completely to the prophecies about Esav, about Edom. And one of the things he keeps talking about in the book of Obadiah, it's a wonderful book of the Bible to know. It's the shortest book. It's only 21 sentences. Everyone should know at least one book of the Bible. Obadiah is highly, highly recommended. The shortest book. So in Obadiah, he keeps talking about that Edom is so arrogant. In bein kochavim simkinecha misham oridchanu Hashem. Even if you in tagbia can, even if you go up to the highest places like eagles, and even if you set your dwelling place amongst the stars, I'll bring you down. So I want to suggest that Harav is not just the mountains of the V'alu Moshe b'Har Tzion l'shpot et Har Esav. Vasim et Harav Shmama. I took their mountains and I made them desolate. Maybe mountains in the sense of elevated levels of. Ve'et nachalato, and his inheritance, the lands that Esav is connected to, l'tanot midbar. I filled it with places where jackals or snakes or creatures are running around. It means there's nobody there. So the places are empty. The places are empty, and they attract all of these different kinds of creatures, which only dwell in places where there is no civilization. So l'tanot midbar nachlato l'tanot midbar. Tanot is a word like tanim. Maybe it's the feminine form of the word tanim. Tanot. Mitzudat Zion, if you want to look at the Bible, it's a form of a snake. Who min nachash. So his areas of inheritance are places where no people want to go. And what exactly are we talking about? When did this happen? Which place of Esav was destroyed? When was it destroyed? And where was it destroyed? The Avar Benel. It's not the right line. But the Avar Benel says, I used it, so it's here somewhere. The Avar Benel says that maybe there was a destruction. Maybe there was a destruction of Esav at the time of Malachi, or maybe when Nebuchadnezzar destroyed parts of Eretz Yisrael, he also destroyed parts of Esav. It's not recorded in Tanakh, but here he mentions the fact that Hashem, in contrast to Eretz Yisrael, which was destroyed temporarily and then rebuilt gloriously, Edom was destroyed and will not be rebuilt. That's his point. Now, what does it mean, Edom? I mean, there are discussions about whether this could mean the Roman Empire. There's a teaching in rabbinic tradition that Magdiel, maybe the list at the end of Parashat Vayishlach, where they list all the descendants of Esav. So maybe it's the last Rashi in Vayishlach. Can I show you Sefer Bereshit with Rashi? So at the end there they list. I'm sorry to bother you. Sorry. So they list all the descendants of. Thank you. They list all the descendants of Esav, and the very end. The very end of the last Rashi. Aluf this and aluf that. Aluf Magdiel, says Rashi, based on Pirkei Dor, realizes he wrote me. Well, the very end. So, and these are the descendants of Esav. Does that mean that the Roman Empire, the fall of the Roman Empire, are we talking about here like the fall of the Roman Empire, which would be like an amazing prophecy that Esav is going to fall apart? Whoever thought that the Roman Empire would be destroyed to such an extent that never again rebuilt? I mean, where's the Roman Empire today? Where is it?
History books.
What?
History books.
History books. Archaeological dig. But I mean, Jewish people. Okay. Kitomar Edom. Rushashnu. If Edom will suggest. It's interesting how he gets the name Edom. Edom, I would think that the reason why he would be called Edom is because he was born with a reddish complexion. It says explicitly in the Torah that when Esau was born, Vayitze Harishon Admoni, red. But there are teachings about like red, and red is the color of blood, and maybe he's going to be so much into shedding blood. It's interesting that there were only two people, I think, in the entire Tanakh about whom the word Admoni is used. One is about Esav, and one is about David HaMelech. So maybe the teaching could be that don't walk around saying I was what I was because I was an Admoni. You were an Admoni, so you could have been like David HaMelech was also an Admoni. Interesting that David HaMelech is also involved in a great deal of bloodshed. Interesting that's the case. He's involved in a great deal of shedding blood, but in a different way completely. Yeah. The last speech that I ever heard from Rabbi Kahana before he was murdered, it was I think on Yom Kippur. I prayed that year. He had a yeshiva across the street. It's still somewhat there. It's called Rayon HaYehudi, right in our Zavira. So I prayed that Yom Kippur, and one of the last Divrei Torah I heard from him was about how so many people misinterpret that which it says about David in the book of Divrei Hayamim. A very famous teaching in the book of Chronicles that God tells David, you are not going to build a temple. You're not the one to build a temple. Because damim rabim shafachta, since you spilled so much blood. But your son, Shlomo, he's a man of peace, he's going to build a temple. So the way everybody else learned, the way I always heard, was that the Beit HaMikdash is a place of love and peace and tranquility, and you can't build a temple. Your hands are too bloody. That's the pshat, I think. So Rav Kahana quoted the Midrash that says something along the lines of that the wars of David, he didn't just go to war as a military, he went to war to try to save Am Yisrael. And he was fighting the battles of God. And he was conquering Israel, and he was defending the Jewish people. Says the Midrash, if you would build the temple could never be destroyed. Your temple, you can't build a temple because damim rabim shafachta. And all of that blood which you spilled is considered to me to be so precious that you have a merit beyond anyone. The exact opposite pshat. It was so much against what I believed. I didn't even believe it. I went home. It was after Yom Kippur. I was looking around for like that. I found it. Because one of the things he says, "Don't believe me, go look it up." So I didn't believe him, and I went and looked it up. That your Beit HaMikdash would be so special, nobody would be able to destroy it. So that's good. So nobody would be able to destroy it. But there's some kind of rabbinic teaching that the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash was a form of a salvation of the Jewish people. You know what I'm talking about? What?
I read something else recently saying that David HaMelech actually kept the students that were soldiers. Occasionally they had to be busy, so he created wars.
I'm just telling you what the Midrash seems to imply it was a very holy endeavor. Anyway, so a person could be an Admoni along the line. There's a famous teaching in the Gemara that there's a special psalm. In several places in the book of Psalms, it speaks about the Gentiles entering the land of Israel. So in chapter 79, Psalm 79 speaks about, Bo goyim benahalatecha, the enemies entered your inheritance. Timmeu et echal kodshecha, They defiled your holy place. Samu et Yerushalayim lechiyim. They turned Jerusalem into a piles and piles of garbage, heaps and heaps of it. So the introduction to that parak is Mizmor La'asaf. Mizmor La'asaf.
Right.
Yes, the Mizmor means a song, a zemer, man. Mizmor La'asaf. Kina La'asaf. Mibayla. This is not a song. This is a dirge. This is a lamentation. So the rabbis teach that no, there's some upbeat side to this destruction. That Jerusalem was destroyed, but not the Beit HaMikdash. So according to that midrash, if David HaMelech would have been building the Beit HaMikdash, there would be no such destruction. Anyway, so I wanted to point out that the Admoni mentioned about Esav, I would think he would be called Admoni because he was born red. But it says in the Torah that it says Al-Kain Karash Moedom. One of the commentaries says whenever it says Al-Kain, it's something which is not necessarily easily understood. Al-Kain is a chidush. Why is he called Admoni? He's called Admoni because Haliteini na min ha'adom hazeh ki hayef anochi. Can I have some of that red stuff? I need some of that red. I don't know what it was. Let's say lentil soup. Right? I need lentil. Lentil. Give me some red stuff. And then the Torah says, Al-Kain. Halitein na min ha'adom hazeh ki hayef anochi. Al-Kain karash mo'edom. Chidush, right? It's a chidush. I mean, if he should be called Edom, it's not because of some red food. He should be called Edom because Vayitzeya Rishon Admoni. That's his essence. So maybe saying something about the nature of his being. That he wants the Adom Hazeh. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, Kitomar Edom. When Edom will suggest Rushashnu from the word rush. Rush is one of the many words in Hebrew for poor. We have been defeated. We are poor. We are subjected. Yes, it's true that we went through a period where we were down, but finush v'nashuv, we will come back. V'nivnech haravot. Maybe this is one of the big contrasts of Am Yisrael to many other peoples. One of the great glories that we have in our nation is that we're sitting here in the same country. We're sitting here in the same city that we were thrown out of. We're sitting in a place where we were exiled from this area. And when Am Yisrael was claiming for a few thousand years that we're coming home, so the world thought we were crazy. They literally thought we were crazy. They thought that the entire nation is in need of some form of psychiatric counseling because they cannot deal with reality. They're living in denial. Every time they got married, they said we're going to Yerushalayim. You're crazy. You're getting married, what Jerusalem? Oh, Yishama Barei. Soon we're going to hear brides and grooms getting married in Yerushalayim. Maybe there are more brides and grooms getting married in Yerushalayim today than any other city in the world. So that's what somebody wrote. Is that true? There are more Jewish weddings in Yerushalayim. It's possible. I don't know. It's possible.
Yeah.
Why?
Possible.
Why in Israel it's not more than Tel Aviv?
More,
I don't know.
many couples who are living outside of
Can come to
Israel
Jerusalem?
come to Jerusalem just to get
Okay,
married.
so it says, "Oh, Yishama Barei." I heard this one's from Rabbi Schwartz. He wanted to suggest something about. And every time they ate a meal, and we're going to Yerushalayim. B'nai Yerushalayim. Every time they ate a piece of cake, we're going to Yerushalayim. Every time they prayed, we're going to Yerushalayim. Every time they what are you talking about? Usually you're not in Yerushalayim. But we're here, Baruch Hashem, right? So Esav, maybe this is also one of the contrasts. That Esav, both communities suffered destruction. The difference is that the Jewish people have this resilient ingredient where no matter what happens to us, we seem to be able to bounce back. That's an amazing fact. And that's the contrast perhaps to Esau. Esau was destroyed, Yaakov was destroyed, but Esau never was able to rebuild. I mean, maybe that's the meaning of why Pesach has to be in the springtime. Why does the Torah insist on Pesach being in the springtime? Shamar et Chodesh Ha'aviv, says in Parashat Re'eh, 16th chapter of Deuteronomy. Shamar et Chodesh Ha'aviv vasita Pesach. Make sure you take care of the fact that Pesach has to be in the spring. Why does it be in the spring? Our cousins who have a lunar calendar, they have Ramadan all times of the year. I mean, Ramadan can be in the spring, it can be in the summer, it can be in the fall, it can be in the winter. It's an unadjusted lunar calendar. What do we have to adjust it for? And one of the major reasons for the adjustment is that Pesach should fall out in the spring. Why is Pesach to be in the spring? So I'm sure there are many reasons. One reason is it says Motzi Asirim Bakosharoth. Hayom atem yotzeim b'chodesh. Hayom atem yotzeim b'chodesh Aviv. I'm taking you out now in the springtime. So they know it's springtime. It's like going outside and saying, it's spring. We know what. Motzi Asirim Bakosharoth. It's the most comfortable time to travel. You have to take a trip. So there's a challenge in winter, there's a challenge in fall, there's a challenge in summer, but springtime is the most pleasant. So maybe we have to re-experience. I'm not talking about other countries. There are other countries where now is winter. I think Australia, New Zealand, right? Australia, then it's winter, right? But I'm talking about Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael has to be aviv, and that's why we have this.
Japan
is winter.
They're playing a lot of snow.
Yeah, winter, right? The second reason is that maybe spring is the message of the story. What happens in the spring? All of the forces that look like they don't no longer exist. They're all destroyed. They're all lifeless. You walk through orchards. You walk through fields. There's nothing there. There's nothing there the whole winter. You don't see anything. You don't see any color. You don't see any life. And then Renaissance. Everything comes back to life. You see these animals. They're hibernating the whole winter. And then they're back. So maybe spring is a symbol. Maybe spring is a symbol of Am Yisrael. But Edom, in contrast, let's try to read Pasuk Dal. Ki tomar Edom rushashnu. If Edom will say, should Edom say rushashnu, we have been humbled, we have been made poor, we have been destroyed. But v'nashuv v'nivneh charavot. We will come back again and we will rebuild those ruins. Ko amar Hashem tzvakot. Ko amar Hashem tzvakot. Hashem, in charge of all the forces of the world, says, no way, they won't do it. Right? Who rebuilt the Roman Empire? Where's the Roman Empire rebuilt? There is no rebuilt Roman Empire. Hema yivnu, v'ani heros. As much as they try to build, I will destroy. It's one of the miracles. One of the miracles of history is that we're here, that we rebuilt the ruination. And we have prophecies. We just read this past Shabbat. We just read on Parashat Parah from the book of Yechezkel that the desolate lands will be. Remember that? V'haaretz hanishama te'aveh. The land which is so desolate, the land which is so empty, will be tilled. V'haaretz halezu hanishama. They'll say, what? We just read it in the 36th chapter of Yechezkel. Remember? This empty land became like Gan Eden. This was last Shabbat after. V'amru haaretz halezu hanishama haytaki Gan Eden v'he'arim hecharevot v'hanishamot v'hane'erasot v'tzurot yashavu. All these lands, all these cities, all these areas which were so empty, they're all built up again. How can it be? So I think it's in contrast to that he's speaking about Esau. It's the exact opposite. Hema yivnu v'ani eros. They'll try to build and I'll destroy. V'karu lahem, and they shall be referred to as Givul Rish'ah, as a nation within boundaries of wickedness. They will be known as wicked people. They will be identified in their levels of wickedness. Karu lahem Givul Rish'ah. In the next pasuk, we're not going to get there tonight, but I hope next week. The next pasuk he speaks about Gvul Yisrael. I think there's a contrast between, Gvul Yisrael and Gvul Rish'ah. That the Gvul Yisrael is a positive, beautiful boundary of Israel, and Gvul Rish'ah, they will be the border boundaries of wickedness. It could be there's a play on the word Rushashnu that is used in the earlier part of the pasuk. So Resha, Rish'ah, and Rushashnu maybe are, at least according to one school of thought, maybe related concepts. And maybe a Samach and a Shin are interchangeable according to the system mentioned in the Zohar and other places. That's Zayin, Samach, Shin, Resh, and Sadi are interchangeable letters. So a Heros is similar to Rush, which is Rishah, which is Rushash, if that interests you. Karu lahem Givul Rish'ah v'ha'am, and this will be known as the nation Asher Za'am Hashem Adolam, and the people which God has shown great anger towards them forever. He translates the word damned. So that's an acceptable word, damned?
Yeah.
What? That's
acceptable
not
as
what?
curse.
Cursing them.
Yeah,
This,
sure.
no, I'm saying this is proper words.
Yeah.
That's why a polite company.
Yeah, I'm asking.
No, it is. In this context, it is.
So no, I'm just asking. I'm just talking about usage. This is proper usage.
The eternal damnation.
Eternal damnation. So when is it formed? When is it not acceptable to use it?
Explicative. It's not.
Well, it's a harsh translation. Za'am means like anger, right? Like the nation, Asher Za'am Hashem Adolam, the nation that will be suffering from the wrath of God, for forever and ever. It means there will be no rebuilding of the ruined area, and all the empires that were destroyed, right? I mean, the Egyptian Empire. What happened to the Egyptian Empire? Where are they? What happened to the Babylonian Empire, the Persian Empire, the Roman Empire? So many of these forms of destruction are complete. Ad olam. In contrast, the contradistinction to Hashem to Am Yisrael, where even if they suffer temporarily, they have downfalls, God forbid, but they're always coming back and they're always rebuilding, and sometimes rebuilding even greater than they did before. If in 1943 there were so many people who thought it's all over, in 1948 they were dancing the Hora on the beaches of Tel Aviv. How can you dance the beach? They just killed 1.5 million Jewish children, man. 30. Maybe it's the opposite of they want v'nashuv v'nivneh. V'nashuv v'nivneh is a Jewish concept, which is not happening to Esau. It's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
We'll try to learn a little Parsha.